Well, you stepped into NFV, and there are a whole set of things that we can dig into on that front as well. We sort of talked about connectivity capabilities. NFV, when you look at new service rollouts, it's got a lot of potential for carriers to increase flexibility. But it also means a serious transition in terms of the platforms on which they're running. It's a move from fixed function systems into big virtualized platforms, changes certainly in operation, potentially in services. If you look at that move towards virtualized functions, what does that mean for carriers? Are there service opportunities there? Does that improve? There's the promise of a lot of greater flexibility in terms of how you deploy services, but there's also a big operational change. Is that a plus, a minus? And we'll kick it down the road.
The nature of carriers and service providers is changing. So when you think of service, like what is a service, right? So is Synapse a service? Is the central nervous system in your body a service? No. So we're moving towards that. So the central nervous system would kind of be like the SDN part, and Synapse would kind of be like the NFV part. And if there was somebody or an entity that could charge you per, I don't know, for your blood flowing around your body, they would do it, right? They can't. So we're going to move to...
Tempting, but there's some carriers out there that may head down that road, so be careful.
Well, see, that's the thing, is physical independence. Think of all the infrastructure that's required to actually support the central nervous system and Synapse. Everything that we are, right? And where do we come from? Who makes us? And what's our business model? What's the ROI for reproduction? So,
pretty strong.
That's a pretty strong thought. It's my analogy, Tim. We're going to go really far away. Now, what direction are we heading in? We're not going backwards, from our infrastructure where it's like, okay, we're going to get inside there and start tinkering. But you know that as you exist in space and time, that everybody wants your money. They want it for everything you do. Ride in the subway, pay taxes, eat food, whatever. So that's like the outside where they charge you for stuff. So where are we moving from? A very inefficient, disparate, bifurcated, trifurcated, broken way that networks communicate and services function today, which is the underlying basis of communication, which is part of what we all have to do, right? Which is the distribution of intelligence. It's not moving in the other direction, it's moving towards what we are as individuals. So if you just think of everything that's inside, that's what everybody's working on. And I love open source for that reason, because of the fact that it's collective and it's best of breed. It's very Darwinian. We're going to figure out all the bad stuff and know what the good stuff is and stick to the good stuff and not do the bad stuff really fast when everyone's sharing the information in almost near real time, which is about as equivalent to Synapse as you can get on a distributed level. But it requires infrastructure, the skull, and everything else we have in order to do that. That is about as far-reaching as you possibly can get, but that's the road that we're on. How long it's going to take? I don't know, but we get there faster by open source and by sharing.
The rest of you, NFV, is this the blood flow? Are we changing the way in which we've got service delivery capabilities within carriers? What do those opportunities look like?
I love the hunter analogy. Yeah, I think
use it all.
Well, we moved from Palmolive moments out to human
Kentucky Fried
physiology,
Chicken.
so we're covering it all today.
American spices. We are dating ourselves. I think that, again, in terms of the successful approach, the carriers have all been trying to work up the stack, both in retail and in wholesale, perpetually trying to offer more and more enhanced services to their customers. The best success stories we see is carriers who do a very good job of being a carrier, and from both an offering and a financial incentive. I think using these functionalities to become more efficient internally is really what should be the focus for carriers, as much because it's very difficult to educate customers and to get product penetration early on. I mean, Ethernet, everyone was convinced it was and is the next big thing, but up until a couple of years ago, the actual penetration rates were still very low, and this is not that big a shift over, whereas we're talking about a much different type of beast from a customer standpoint. So I think the carriers would be best served by utilizing NFV and SDN to become more efficient in their own right, and again, ideally interoperate more efficiently and deliver a better product to their customer, and basically disguise these features and functions behind within their network, and just offer do what they do much better and at a lower cost themselves, long before they consider a rollout that would be a product that would appeal to a very, very small customer segment.
And I think the business model is the question you're getting at, and the carriers don't have the business model. The business model is something new that's being developed that undermines what we all once knew as carriers. Now, when you get to that intelligence level, I mean, I don't know, we'll pick on Google just because it's easy to. You know, their ad revenue funded their purchase of 111 8th Avenue for almost $2 billion. They bought a lot of infrastructure through clicks. Okay, that's all public record stuff I can talk about. That is not the traditional way the carriers look at things, and that's not where they get their revenue. And a lot of the revenue that's being generated by content over the top, cloud, whatever you want to call it, you know, Amazon's investing a lot of money in infrastructure to become independent from carriers. So they're a whole new thing that exists, and they're moving in this direction, and you've got the open compute and all this. What is that? How do they make money? They're building their own infrastructure. It's independent. But what does that mean for carriers controlling things with an A-loc and a Z-loc? There's no A-loc and Z-loc. It'll just be on the brain, and you'll be connected into it. And I see that happening over the course of many years. And, you know, nothing happens overnight. Like you said, Ethernet adoption, I think, took a long time, largely because the carriers themselves wanted to control capital. They wanted to control how much capital they had to spend and rip out the old stuff. They were still amortizing it. They wanted to milk it. If they didn't have pressure on them, they weren't going to do it. There's still a lot of parts of the country that don't have it because they have no competitive threat, so they don't make the investment. We're still going through that. That's going to happen for a long time.
I'd like to disagree a little bit, if I could.
Sure.
I think carriers absolutely do have a business model for NFV. And, I mean, I'm not overstating this when I say that it's probably the most significant activity that the network operators have undertaken in the last 25 years, and I've been in this business. They are moving aggressively towards the goal of NFV. They know they need to do it, else they will die, because the over-the-top players will, quite frankly, take their subscribers, take their revenue base, they'll be gone. So they know they need to act quick. They have the business model to do it. We take the IP multimedia subsystem example, for example, to deliver a voice service over IMS today, if you was to deliver it using classic telephony equipment, if you go to Ericsson or whatever and buy their boxes, deliver IMS, it would cost a carrier about $10 per subscriber. If you deliver IMS using, for example, what Metaswitch delivered as Project Clearwater, an open source IMS core ready for cloud deployments, because that software is free, it's open source, you're basically paying only for the cloud infrastructure it's delivered on. If a carrier was to deploy that, it would cost them under 2 cents per subscriber per year, which is free, essentially, which is what voice is going to be for all carriers.